everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of the Barefoot Genealogist. It is time for an episode of What's New at Ancestry. This is for June 2022. Now, if you've never joined us for a What's New episode, we are going to cover some upcoming genealogical conferences and events. We're going to talk about some of the new content available on Ancestry, some of the historical records that are being uploaded to the site, and then we're going to wrap it up with a look at some of the new features and tools on the site. So with that, let's go ahead and dive in. Let's start with our upcoming conferences and events. Now, we did just wrap up the National Genealogical Society's annual conference. It was the first conference to be held in person for NGS in a few years, and it was in Sacramento, and it was fantastic. If you are considering attending next year, that conference will be held in Richmond, Virginia. So it's a May conference. It will be held in Richmond, Virginia next year. So if you want to start planning, you can do that. Now, still coming up this year, we have the IAJGS, or International Association of Jewish Genealogical Society conference coming up. It will be virtual only, and you can register now at iajgs2022.org. So if you have Jewish ancestry, whether it's something you've spent some time researching so far or not, or if you've taken a DNA test and maybe discovered some surprise Jewish ancestry, you might want to check out the program for this conference. There are likely going to be classes that are going to assist you with your family history discoveries. So that is the next big conference coming up. Now, let's talk about some of the new and updated historical record collections on Ancestry. Ancestry adds an average of about 3 million new records a day to the site. One of the things that you may notice is that since our last What's New episode in February, Ancestry has added more than 2 billion, with a B, records to the site. So February, March, April, May, 4 months. 2 billion records. Let's take a look at just some of those record collections. Of course, the big news of the last few months is the 1950 U.S. federal census. More than 154 million records. So let me just give you a quick update on the census. If you want more details, be sure to check here on the Ancestry YouTube channel. There are videos that I've done for several weeks during the launch or the release of the census. And then if you want to join me over on my Instagram page, as each new census index is completed through the review process by Family Search, I've been running some fun little contests and giveaways. So if you want to come join us there, you're welcome. So, federal government released the census on April 1st. Ancestry had all of those images downloaded and uploaded to our site within about 48 hours, so by the 3rd of April. So everybody was able to browse images pretty quickly. Now, the browse was facilitated by a new tool called the Census District Finder, where you just type in the name or address of the address or city of where the person was living, and it would show you which enumeration district of images you needed to go and view. Then Ancestry immediately got to work taking those images and running them through our proprietary handwriting recognition algorithm, where we were able to, within 12 days, create a fully searchable, fully indexed version of the 1950 census, all 154 million records. We then delivered that handwriting recognition or computer-generated version of the index to Family Search, where volunteers there, hopefully you've been participating, I know I have been reviewing those records to make sure that the computer read them correctly and correcting them where they were incorrect. So that's been kind of a fun process. Then, as Family Search has completed the review of each of those states, state by state, Ancestry's been updating the index on our site. So the full 1950 census, if you drifted away, come back to me. The full 1950 census is fully searchable on Ancestry. We published the completed handwriting recognition version of the index. Then, as family search completes state by state, we're updating the index on Ancestry with that curated version for that state. So you can go to familysearch.org/1950 census to help participate in reviewing those records. You can go to ancestry.com/1950 census to view those records and search them. And you can also see there a map that shows you what we've completed. I think yesterday, Family Search delivered the state of Utah. I know several of the western states and southern states are getting pretty close to completion. So again, you can follow me over on Instagram for up-to-the-minute updates, or you can just join us here when we do these updates. Okay, next up, over the last few months, Ancestry has been working on a collection of Mexican Catholic parish church records. So church records typically are going to be baptisms, which often will include the birth date, marriages, and then burials, which will often include the death date. So 63 million Mexican Catholic records have been published on Ancestry over the last few months, and that's super exciting because Ancestry also has expanded into Mexico. We have a Spanish language toggle on the Ancestry.com site. We have an Ancestry.mx site. And so whether your family lives in Mexico or whether your family has immigrated to the US or up into Canada, you're going to be able to access those records now. In addition to that, Ancestry has published a large collection, 813 million records of European phone books. So these are for countries all over Europe. Most of them are more modern phone books, but as you're looking to trace people in and around Europe, this is going to be really a useful collection. I've already used it several times. People sometimes think, oh, well, city directories or phone books, they're just lists of names. That's true, but oftentimes it'll show you who else was living in the household because they're going to have oftentimes the same surname and the same address, and so you can kind of look for those kinds of patterns. If people just disappear, you're looking year by year through those directories, then all of a sudden they disappear. That's an indication that they may have moved if everybody in the family is gone, or that somebody passed away if just one of them is gone. So they're a really great resource for filling in the gaps between census records here in the US and of course in Europe, where there are not consistent census records or where those census records are still protected by different privacy laws. These are going to give you some more recent or current records to work with. For me, it's been super helpful when looking for some of those DNA cousins and trying to make some of those connections. Now, a couple years ago, I announced that Ancestry was going through newspapers.com and creating an index to the marriages and obituaries in the large collection of newspapers. And so the index lives on Ancestry, the images live on newspapers.com. I love it. I love having an index just to be able to search it readily, to be able to know if a record exists there or not. Initially, when we launched this, it was just US newspapers. We have since expanded into Canada, and now we have more than 11 million records that are indexes to obituaries and marriages on newspapers.com for the UK and Ireland. If you've heard me talk about newspapers, you know what a resource they are. Gold mine of information for keeping track of people. And again, this covers a lot of current newspapers going all the way back to, I think, the 1700s. So really, really great resource. Ancestry has also published in the last few months more than 115 million French birth, marriage, and death records. So if you have ancestry in France, that's going to be super useful to you. We have put these into multiple databases. So you either need to do a location-based search with France selected as your collection priority and possibly even your lived-in location. Make sure you mark that exact. If you use that, that will focus your searches. Or if you know the exact province or department that they lived in France, you can go to the card catalog and just search for that and go search the database directly. Those of you who've spent time with me know direct database searches on Ancestry are my favorite way to mine collections for information on family groups, rather than relying on a global record search that searches all 30 billion records on Ancestry and sometimes can be a little bit more difficult to navigate. If you need a refresher course on that, I do have a video that I did a few years ago called What Records Exist and How to Find Them. So you can search for that here on the Ancestry YouTube channel. And if I remember, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. Okay, so that is the new content. Literally billions of records that have come online just in the last few months. As I said at the top of that section, Ancestry continues to add millions of records to the site every day. So that is what your subscription is paying for access to, is those historical records that Ancestry is processing. Now let's talk about the new and updated tools and experiences on the Ancestry.com website and in the Ancestry mobile app. So a couple of months ago, you may remember, Ancestry announced at RootsTech that we have partnered with PhotoMine, and we have incorporated some of their technology directly into the Ancestry mobile app. If you go back and watch the What's New at RootsTech video, you'll see a demonstration of the multi-image scanning and the image enhancement process, and all of that is done through the mobile app. However, we have now taken an additional PhotoMine tool, which is image colorization, and we have implemented that not just in the mobile app, but also through the web experience. So anywhere you use a web browser, whether you're using it on your laptop or your desktop or your tablet, however you're accessing Ancestry, you now have access to these image colorization tools. In order to make this a little easier for everyone, we wanted to make sure everyone knew how to get to their tree media gallery. It used to be a little bit buried. You'd have to click on the tree name and then look through the menu to find it. So now we have an icon. You'll notice it over here. When you're viewing your tree, the icon will be just above the zoom in, zoom out buttons and just below the tree layer and recentering buttons. So it's an image icon. And if you click on it, that will take you to your tree gallery. That's going to open up just the list of every photo or document or story that you have uploaded to your tree. And you can then decide if there are any of those photos you want to colorize. You can see here a couple pictures that I have applied that technology to. So select a photo. When you select a photo, it'll open up the picture. These are my great-great-grandparents. And you'll have the little tools icon. It's the little wrench over here on the right-hand side. When you click that, it's going to show you this new option to edit the photo. And you'll see that this brand new colorization feature is still a little bit in beta. And so you might see that beta tag on there. When you select Edit Photo, you're going to get our little workspace panel is going to pop out, and you're going to have the option there to colorize. Now, right now, that's the only enhancement feature available. But you'll notice there's a lot of space here, so we can, in the future, add some additional image editing tools. But right now, just colorize. So when you click on colorize, what it's going to do is that it's going to then colorize that photo. Now, it is an automated colorization process, so there's no fine-tuning controls available for you yet. So what we do is we give you the opportunity to toggle back and forth between the original, which is what is saved in your tree. The original is not altered in any way. It is still available, and it is still viewable there in your tree. And then you can toggle the colorization on or off by just clicking on these images. And when you select the image, that's what's going to display in your tree. So we're not creating a new image. So there will only still be one image in your tree. It's just a matter of toggling the colorization on or off for viewing in your tree. You can, of course, download a colorized version of that for your own use on your own computer if you'd like to. There's no need to upload it back onto your tree, because then you'll just be kind of bloating your media gallery with colorized and non-colorized versions. So single version, the original is maintained. You just decide whether you want the colorization viewable or not. So those are the new colorization tools. Next up, so AncestryDNA, we've got more than 22 million people who have DNA tested, so you probably continue to see new matches, but we're going to talk about a couple of new features within the DNA experience. So the first new feature that came out a few weeks ago is what we're calling ethnicity inheritance. So the Ancestry science team has been hard at work on what's called the SideView technology, which allows us to see which side or which chromosome in each pair some of the information in your DNA results came from. So, quick DNA primer for those of you who aren't overly familiar. You have 22 pairs of chromosomes in your autosome, and that's those 22 pairs of chromosomes that Ancestry is looking at. You also have a 23rd pair that is your sex chromosome, but Ancestry is an autosomal DNA test. So we look at chromosomes 1 through 22. In each chromosome, you have a pair, and one of those came from your mom and one of those came from your dad. So 22 pairs of chromosomes, one set from mom, one set from dad, one side and the other side. Unfortunately, in your body, your DNA doesn't come labeled mom's side, dad's side. So we can use this technology to split the sides and look at what you inherited from one parent and what you inherited from the other parent, but we don't know which parent is which. So you'll just see parent 1 and parent 2. However, you can click the Edit Parent button, and it will allow you to, if you know, label them paternal or maternal. For some of you, paternal may be parent 1. For some of you, paternal may be parent 2. And it could be different with siblings or parents and children, right? So there is no rhyme or reason to how it all plays out. It's just the two sides of your pair of chromosomes, and you have to determine which one's parent 1 and which one's parent 2. Now, for some of us, it's easy because we have a parent who has a unique ethnicity. And so we're able to say, oh, that's clearly my dad. So therefore, the other one by default, of course, is going to be my mom. But for some of you, I get if you're 100% something, 100% Irish or Jewish, those are the two ethnicities where I often see people 100%. You're not going to be able to tell the difference, obviously. And if your parents are very similar in their ethnic background, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to tell. But we are working on some additional tools for the future using the same SideView technology. So keep your eyes out for those in the coming year or so, and that might help with this. So you can edit it if you can tell. If you can't tell, you'll just have to wait a little bit to see if you can figure it out. Now, also in DNA, one of the things that we do is because we have such a large network, not only can we use the SideView technology to create some new interesting experiences for you, but we also can start to pinpoint our genetic communities. Ancestry has a very large number of communities. So you have your ethnicity estimate, which is the percentages of where your DNA was 500 to 1,000 years ago. And then you have the communities, usually represented with a dotted line, and that's showing where you have family members who have lived within the last 200 years. And as more people test, we're able to get more and more precise with those various communities. So I mentioned earlier, we've got a site in Mexico now. We have Mexican Catholic record, a huge collection of Mexican Catholic records that joined the other 500 million or so Mexican records on our site. And now with the DNA, we have been able to create 87 communities for Mexico. So be sure if you have ancestry from there and you haven't looked at your DNA story lately, go back and check that and see if you have been, by nature of the people who have tested, pulled into or part of a creation of one of those communities. Now, Ancestry is also now selling DNA kits in Mexico. So you can go, if you have family still living in Mexico, they can now purchase tests that might help with your family history discoveries. In addition to the communities in Mexico, we have also updated communities in Italy and along that Dalmatian coast, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, right? That whole, I think Albania is over there, that whole area. And so there are now 96 communities for those of you with heritage in those areas. And we went in the southern United States from 71 communities to now 218 unique communities there. That's where I saw my big changes, of course. My mama's family, you've maybe heard me talk about it, all from the southern United States. We used to just have this like generic Tennessee settlers community, but now it's very specific to where in Tennessee and then exactly where in Northwest Arkansas that they immigrated to back in the 1830s. So super fascinating to see that come out of just the DNA results. If you haven't checked out your communities lately, like I said, go and do that. Okay, one last thing I just want to mention before we get to our social wrap up. Somehow I went too fast. There we go. Is the new index-only icon. So I've been seeing lots of chatter on social media about this. I've been asked a ton of questions. Let me just make some things perfectly clear. So Ancestry has websites all over the world. So we have Ancestry.com here in the US. And I mentioned we've now introduced a Spanish language toggle on the site. In Canada, we have Ancestry.ca, and it toggles between English and French. We have Ancestry.mx, .uk, .com.au, .de in Germany, .fr in France, Italy is .it, right? Like, so there are Ancestry websites that are like just an overlay or an interface to the website that has still all the same world records, right? But one of the challenges is that we have to translate things in all those languages. So there are some records on Ancestry that are just an index, whether it's because that's all they ever were, like the Social Security applications and claims index. That is what the government provided to Ancestry, is just this index. There are Social Security applications, and for some period of history, they were in paper format, and the Social Security Administration holds those, but they have never published those online. They have only given us the index to those records. And so it used to be that you would come here, for example, to this index, and you would see a little icon right here that just said index only, no image available. Well, because we didn't want to have to translate that little snippet into all the languages, it was easier just to create an index only icon. And so we've replaced the no image available index only language with just this icon of an index card. And so apparently that's confused some of you. So I just want to make it really clear that that's all we've done. We haven't removed any images. So some of you have been a little confused and thought, oh, well, Ancestry used to show me an image of this and now they're not. Nope. We have not removed any images. We've just changed the icon. So if you have any other questions about that or anything else for that matter that we've talked about today, please feel free to leave them here in the video as a comment. For our social wrap up, let me just remind you that you can find Ancestry. You can comment here. Ancestry has a Facebook page. We have an Instagram account and a Twitter account. You can also find me personally on both Instagram and Facebook. I'm a little better at responding on Instagram because I always have my phone with me than I am about responding from my Facebook page. But comments here on the YouTube channel are a great way, or you can find me in these places. Well, that is all I have prepared for you today. I hope that was useful information. I hope that you are subscribed here to the Ancestry YouTube channel so that you can continue to get additional content from me and from Ancestry in general. And until next time, I'm Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.